We got a bit of a problem as of right now. Most games are like kind of massive, usually as a result of putting too much stuff in the game, technical term. Nowadays, most of that stuff is cosmetics like skins, but in the past it used to be too many features. Games almost always start out basic, and then the devs start adding more and more new things, usually just because they think it would be cool. I'm looking at you, Minecraft. But the more stuff you add, the more convoluted it gets, you get more bugs, a lot of bugs, and it could get confusing as a player if you don't spend your existence learning it all. N++, on the other hand, doesn't have all that. It's quite literally one of the simplest games you can learn while still being complex enough to not just look like Pong. And while other games keep on adding new stuff, N++ just kept on refining what it already has until it's as perfect as possible. Of course, there's a couple new things in it compared to its predecessors, but that's very different from a million new things. Notice I said predecessors, because to explain why this game is close to perfect, I'm gonna need to do a brief history lesson because this game isn't the first in its series. In 2001, two people from the University of Toronto fused together Goku style to form Metanet Software. Then for the next 3 years, random shit happened, which resulted in 2004, when they released their first Flash game, N, The Way of the Ninja, which you can still download from its website. Wait, hold on. Flash game? Yep, they made it in Flash. Rip Flash. N looked a lot cleaner than most Flash games. Flash games are known to have a certain look to them, if that makes sense. They often look more lower quality because they were usually made by one person and normally just for fun. So obviously you're not going to get GTA 6 type graphics from Flash. It has a very simple design and flat color scheme, if that makes sense. Like almost the entire environment is gray, except for the gold coins, red bombs, and black ninja. The levels are also made with flat geometry, so combined with the art style, give the game a cool look. And like I said before, this game tries to be as simple as possible. There's no UI or HUD elements besides the very visible timer at the top. All the levels are limited to the screen space, so you always know what a level has before you start it. No need to reveal it like a scroller. Okay, I should probably explain how this game works. So, you're a ninja, in a room, and you have to escape through the door. However, the door starts closed, so you have to press the button to open it. And then you can go through the door. Sounds simple, however each level depends on where that button is and what's in between you and the button. It gets harder depending on where the button is, like if you have to climb through a one-way platform to reach it, or if it's locked behind a gate that opens from a switch, or if you soft lock yourself by closing it with a gate that closes from a switch, or if you have to launch yourself with a pad to reach it, or if you have to jump slightly higher with these bouncy blocks, or if there's mines you have to watch out for because, plot twist, they explode, or if there's some enemies that are trying to kill you. Speaking of enemies, we got quite a few of them. There's the Zap drone, regular drone, the homing missile, I hate this one, Gauss gun, the Roomba, lasers, machine gun guy, mines, and the Thwomp. No connection to Mario. The best part is that they can still kill you even after you finish the level. Rip. You can't really take your time though, because you have a starting time limit of 90 seconds to complete an episode, which is a series of 5 levels. That would be almost impossible, however, you see this gold? Each piece of gold you collect gives you an extra 2 seconds. Doesn't sound like a lot, but the levels usually have a lot of gold in them. Some of them are entirely just gold. Surprise twist, this timer is actually the amount of life you have, because if you run out, you explode. So essentially, this ninja is addicted to gold and needs to keep collecting it just to live. Poor soul. The skill part of this game comes in the movement. The movement here is momentum based, meaning there's velocity, acceleration, friction, and all that other physics stuff that you definitely didn't pay attention to in class. The physics make sense as well. If you jump off a sloped surface, your direction changes with the correct angle, and jumping off a sloped surface down gives you more horizontal speed with less height. Keep in mind that fall damage is a thing, except for landing on a sloped surface, then you're good. And last thing, you can slide and jump off walls, meaning you can climb them by repeatedly jumping. Like I said, this game is easy to understand, but kind of hard to get good at. You just have to develop a feel for it. Anyway, back to N. It's pretty packed for just being a Flash game. There's 100 episodes, and since each episode has 5 levels, you're looking at least 500 levels. I say at least because in the main menu there's also user-made levels, meaning there's probably thousands of levels to play, with more being made to this day. You'll need an account to make custom levels, and somehow the servers still work. Really cool. Anyway, I've been talking about N this whole time. Continuing with the history lecture, with the success of N, in 2008, Metanet published a sequel called N+. This one was first exclusively made for the Xbox 360. Unfortunate. However, shortly after, versions came out for the DS and PSP. Yes, really. Though, given that the DS and PSP are handhelds, their N Plus was different from the Xbox version. I'll talk about them later. Notice I said published instead of developed. That's because Metanet didn't make the Xbox version of N Plus, a studio called Slick Entertainment did. And unfortunately, this is my least favorite of the N games. I still like the game, don't get me wrong, but it looks like Slick didn't really know what they were doing because the physics and even the animations in this game just don't feel right. The physics seem way more floaty than normal, like it feels like you have moon gravity on, and sometimes you quite literally float in midair for half a second. Maybe they made it slightly easier since you have to play this on a controller. I'm not sure. Or maybe I'm just terrible at the game. Yeah, that's definitely it. It also seems like you have a bigger hitbox in this game because sometimes I would activate the button by just barely grazing it with my forehead. They also overdid the menu a bit. It's still good, but it's way busier than the more simple one that I think fits better. However, one change I don't like is that you can't see the whole level on screen because the camera is more zoomed in and it follows you. This is a step down because you don't quite know what's coming up next. You can see a preview of the whole level before you start it, but because there's moving enemies, you don't know where they are until you get to that point. Now that's when you're playing, but if you watch a replay, you can see the whole level on screen, so I don't know. There's now also background music while you play. I must say the music is quite banging. And while they updated a lot, for some reason the coin collection sound is exactly the same. I guess that was at the bottom of their list. Oh, and as expected, there's a level editor, which I think it's a lot better than the previous one. Now for the DS and PSP versions, these two were published by Atari? Anyway, these two games changed the color scheme again. It went from all gray to more brown and gray, and now it's blue and light blue. Almost. There's an option to change it to the classic gray if you want. The two versions are almost the same. In the DS version, the bottom screen shows you the whole level while the top works the same as the Xbox, and the PSP is the same, minus the bottom screen. Really the only thing distinguishing the two is that the PSP version isn't pixelated. On the DS, you are just about 20 pixels. The physics are slightly adjusted, again. The gravity is much stronger, and you have way more air acceleration. I hate to say it, but I prefer these two versions more than the Xbox version. Sorry. But then, 7 years later, I can finally present the original point of this f***ing video. Metanet Software made N++. This game, I'd say, is the definitive platformer. It took everything from the original N and the 3 N+, and just made them better and more polished, and on top of that, they added a lot of stuff. Not in the way I said in the beginning though, it's a bit different. So where do I begin? Remember when I said the interface in the Xbox N Plus looked a bit extra? Well, they went back to the simple version while still having the fail replays in the background. The level select screen looks like it's taken from the handheld version, and as a side note, holy shit, that's a lot of levels. More on that later. Your hitbox isn't as massive as it was in N+. The physics here are polished, there's no Xbox moon gravity, and the air acceleration isn't as strong as the handheld version, and you can wall jump the moment you touch a wall, unlike the other versions, which was kind of annoying. There's also one cool trick you can do that you probably don't know of. See this edge? It looks like a completely straight corner, right? However, if I try to slowly fall off of it, you might notice that the ninja appears to briefly slope off of it. That means that these straight corners are the same as these round corners, just with less of a curve. Meaning that the physics of sloped surfaces apply to them as well, allowing you to jump from them with more height or land on them without dying. Crazy, right? This sloping thing is in the other two games as well, but you couldn't do tricks off of them. Now you can. I mean, unless I'm just trash at the other ones, I don't know. N++ now has a small story page that tells you the story of this game, I guess. They basically wrote something that fits with the notion of the episodes and the time limit. There's a few new enemies as well. There's a micro drone, which are like the drones, but they're smaller and move faster. There's this thing that they call the death ball, which is a floating thing that constantly tries to get you, so don't let it touch you. There's these laser turrets, which fire a constant laser. There's toggleable mines, which start off as an outline, and if you touch them, they then become a physical mine. And lastly, there's the evil ninja. They're these jagged circles that if you touch, will break the universe by bringing in a clone of yourself from another dimension that basically copies your exact movements from a couple seconds ago. And if you touch them, the universe realizes that something is gravely wrong and will explode you and your clone in a million pieces. There's also no limit to how many of them you can have. Some of the levels are literally designed to have 100 evil ninjas running around, which are annoying as hell. There's some nice touches as well. Like the Gauss turrets now have an audible sound and visible spot when they're targeting you, which didn't exist in the first M, so that's nice. The only downside is that the ninja player model now doesn't look as cool, and he doesn't do any dances when you complete a level, he just raises his hand to ask a question. Oh well. But at least you can customize your ninja a lot. You can change the color, and you can give him many different types of headbands, from a regular one, to a majestic one, to a double one, to one that's about 50 miles long. The choice is yours. You also have a choice on the color scheme, because instead of only having one or maybe two, there's now 119 color schemes that you slowly unlock by beating more levels. Some of them are good, and others not so good. The default one looks to be a darker version of the one from N+. There's a classic one if you like, but pick your poison, cause there's a lot. Oh, and there's new music. I normally have it turned off, but it does sound dope. There's a few different modes in M++. There's the classic solo mode where you play 5 levels packed into an episode, except now instead of 100 episodes totaling 500 levels, there's now 1,925 levels. Let that sink in. They're split into 4 sections. There's the intro that gives you the easy levels to teach you the basics. Then there's the normal 100 episodes, except not quite, because when you finish all of them, you unlock an extra 20 episodes with levels that are harder, so really there's 120. Then there's the ultimate section. This is the hard mode section. The beginning A row might not seem that bad, but trust me, it gets intense. Oh, and again, after you finish all of them, you unlock the X row with even harder levels, and considering that this is the ultimate section, these are the hardest official levels in the game. Asterisk on that. And lastly, there's the legacy section. As you can imagine, all of these levels are taken from the previous endgames. Oh, and again, there's an extra row. If you want more of a challenge instead of the solo mode, there is the hardcore mode. In this mode, you have to play through a whole column of episodes, so 25 levels, all at once. The hard part is that your time limit carries through the whole thing. Any gold you get gets added on after you finish the level, and if you die, you don't get back the time you lost. Thankfully, if you run out of time, you don't instantly explode, you go into sudden death as a last chance, and if you die now, you're done. This gets extremely hard on the ultimate section, like I still haven't even finished all of them. Like I said, there's a lot to do. There's so many levels that it took me almost 200 hours to finish all of them. Why so long? Well, again, the harder levels are indeed very hard. Some of them took me a couple hours to finish. And remember, your time limit carries through the episode, so there were a few times I had to go the harder route because I had to get coins so I didn't run out of time. As a bonus, if you manage to get all the coins in an episode, you get a small badge for that episode in the menu. Except, wait, why did all my coin badges turn into brackets? And why is there now something in the options called mysteriousness? Well, if you set mysteriousness to high, you unlock the challenges, which you need a PhD to understand, so let me explain. So you know how there's many different things in the levels, right? Like there's gold, switches, and toggleable mines. Well, now for each level, there's a challenge associated with getting or not getting something. For example, there can be a challenge for getting all the coins or purposely getting no coins. There can be a challenge for activating all the mines or not touching any mines at all. And there's combinations. There can be a challenge for touching all the mines and getting no coins, or there can be a challenge for touching absolutely nothing. There's a lot of them. Not just figuratively, sometimes a level can have a lot of challenges. You can't see them when you're in episode view, so you have to go to the levels view to see them. It's these symbols down here. You might be like, what the fuck does this mean? Well, there's a whole code to understanding what the challenges are. It might look like hieroglyphs, but actually, yeah, they are. The letter tells you what the challenge is, and the plus plus or minus minus tells you whether you have to get all of that thing or none of that thing. So, for example, G++ will mean you have to get all the gold, and G-, means you have to get no gold. There's T for getting all or none of the toggles, like mines. O is for all the locked doors. C is all the trapdoors, which are the ones with the smaller switches. And E is for activating the evil ninjas. These tasks are grouped together to make a challenge. So sometimes one challenge only has one thing, while another has all 5 things. You'll only see question marks at first, so you'll have to discover them by doing the separate things, and then you can do the combined challenges. And these challenges are grouped into sections as well. There's the question mark challenges and the exclamation point challenges. If you manage to do all the question mark or exclamation mark challenges in an episode, the bracket will get that new symbol, and you unlock yet another level. Oh yeah, there's more levels. If you go into a level view, you'll see the 4 categories, but now you'll also see 2 more categories, the question mark and exclamation mark. These levels are unlocked by completing the corresponding challenges for each episode. Side note, the exclamation mark challenges are usually harder. Or at least they were for me, I don't know, maybe I'm just And to top it off, even the challenge levels have their own challenges as well. Don't worry, you won't unlock another thing. At least that I know of. And I don't think I'm completing all the challenges anytime soon, cause like, what the f is this? Anyway, if you get bored of the almost 2000 levels, you guessed it, you can go see the custom levels. Most of them are basic, but you got the popular levels and you can see the featured ones, which a lot of the time are just artwork made with the M++ pieces. In before someone remakes the Mona Lisa. And if you thought some of the official levels were really hard, then do not step foot into the hardest category. Because you'll witness shit like this, and this, and this. How the fuck? These are by far the hardest levels to ever exist. And I guarantee you that you can't beat them. Actually, I know you can't because there is a public leaderboard and most of the time there's like only 2 or 3 people on it. Or unless your name is Skylighter, to whom these levels are easy mode because you've beaten almost all of them. What the hell, bro? My favorite custom ones are the auto levels. Holy shit. Just like Geometry Dash, these are levels that are impossible, so instead the level plays itself. And it is kind of cool to see a trillion things on screen just barely hitting you, even if you do go deaf in the process. If you do get bored of playing by yourself, there's also co-op levels. A lot of them again. Now you could also play the solo levels co-op style, however these levels are specifically designed in a way that would be impossible to do solo, which is why you need 2 or more people. You can have a maximum of 4 people, by the way. A common trope in these levels is having the button behind some mines, which requires someone to sacrifice themselves so that the other can finish, because you only need 1 person to reach the door to complete it. Or another common thing is to have someone trapped in a room dodging enemies until the other person opens the door. And don't worry, whether or not you thought you were actually good at the game, once you play co-op, you'll realize that all of you actually suck. Oh, and again, there's custom co-op levels. The last mode is called Race. In this mode, you have to race to the door before everyone else. Get it? The more coins you get, you'll accumulate a higher bonus, which is then added to your score after each level, and the goal is to have the highest score amongst your peers at the end. If you die, you'll lose some of your bonus, and you spawn back at the beginning after a few seconds to continue. This goes until 1 person makes it to the door, at which point everyone else is in sudden death mode and their bonus starts to slowly vanish. The best part is if you do reach the door before everyone else, you spawn a rocket which you can control yourself. It's a bit tricky though, so you can go blow someone up to mess with them. If the level is too hard though and no one has made it to the door for a long while, the game will activate You Suck mode. Superb name choice. In this mode, enemies will slowly start to disappear to make the level easier, and once someone reaches the end, everyone else detonates. Or, if you all know for a fact that you suck, you can collectively agree to manually start You Suck mode in the pause menu. One bonus feature is that if you're a pro hacker god, or your name is Skylighter, and you reach the exit with a full bar, you automatically win, because at that point no one is beating you. If, however, you don't have friends, you can play the race levels yourself. You'll end up always getting first place, and at that point it might as well just be a solo level. Oh, and you guessed it, there's custom race levels too. Now I should mention that M++ officially only supports local co-op, not online co-op. However, the game does support Steam Remote Play, which is Steam's method of allowing local play through the internet. It does work, however it will highly depend on the internet speed of the host. So if the host ends up with dial-up internet, you're gonna have the biggest input delay in history, which is not particularly ideal in a game that needs really precise inputs. I ended up playing co-op with Steam Remote Play, so the other person was stuck on Ultra Demon difficulty. I'd like to commend them for still managing to make it through the levels. However, getting first place in race mode isn't really difficult when your opponent has no idea if the movement buttons are even registering. So keep that in mind if you're thinking of playing this online. And well, that's everything you can do in M++. If you're at all interested in platformers, you have to give this one a try. Clearly there's a lot to do. I'm sure this is the last endgame because I think Metanet is looking to make other stuff, and if you make too many sequels, I don't think you'll be able to market a game called M+++++. I don't think there's a need for that. This game is already as close to perfect as it can get. And if you're not planning to 100% this game, which I wouldn't even bother trying, I think there's only been like 6 people who have 100% of this game, then this can be a game you play around with when you're just chilling. Or if you have friends over, I'm sure it can turn into the ideal party game. Move over, Mario Party. End Party just got the golden star. Just kidding, Mario Party is still really fun. But anyways, bye.